Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Money and Change. My name is Ira Robinson. As always, we're here with the amazing Stu Shear. Hello, Stu.
Well, top of the morning or afternoon or evening, whichever the case may be. And may Aaron go braless.
Exactly.
Well, since it was St. Patty's Day, yesterday, I had a friend of mine that has D52 Design Services, and where she lives, they had a beer run on St. Patty's Day. Can you imagine a 5K beer run?
Thank you. No, I'll pass.
She said they blocked off the streets in front of her house, which was on one of the main streets, and all of these people, I don't know, 200-300 people come running by. And, I'm thinking, okay, now what did they do? Drink a beer, run down the street, go to another site, drink a beer, and then run back and see who has the best time. Oh, okay, that's a little interesting. I wonder how many people were puking up green beer by the time they got back.
That would be me right there, yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyhow, happy St. Patty's Day, or belated St. Patty's Day. And hopefully people were wearing green and not turning green. So with that, we always do some shout outs when we start up, and I'm in mourning. University of Findlay Oilers got beat by Ferris State, which was the #1 seed in the region for NCAA Division II basketball. So they had a successful season, 28-5, and that's not bad. So maybe next year they'll be better. Who knows? Well, a big shout out to WCET FM 101.7 in Columbia, South Carolina. That's Columbia Talk. And we've been on their FM station for a while now, and we really appreciate them carrying the show. And if you're in the Columbia, South Carolina area, you want to listen to us on FM 101.7. Also, we're on Facebook, aren't we?
Yes. Over at Open Eyes Network for Facebook. Everything goes over into my social media account there. So yeah, we post over there. We're also on my own website, openeyesnetwork.com. If you guys want to check that out, the archives of the shows are available over there as well.
And did you hear about iHeartRadio?
About them starting to close down. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was a shock because we were on iHeart too. And so, I don't know what's going to happen out of that bankruptcy. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens with iHeartRadio. A lot of people will miss that one.
Yeah, a lot of people use it.
Yeah, and they'll miss our show too. And hopefully we get picked up on another network. Also, a big shout out to Rusty Ducks Custom Pens. And Phil at Rusty Ducks Custom Pens is still turning out pens like you wouldn't believe. And if you go to the Friends of moneyandchange.weebly.com and you go back there, you'll see some pictures of some of the pens that Rusty has done, basically Phil. And Phil does an excellent job on whatever he produces. He's just an artisan. And so if you want to give custom pens out to your customers or to your employees for special events, check out Rusty Ducks Custom Pens at his Facebook page, and you can contact him at phil@rustyduks.com. That's Phil at rustyducks.com. Okay, we go on now. We have D52 Creative Services, and that's Mary Frances Barnes Rodriguez. And boy, she had all the Irish luck this weekend, watching all the down a beer race. And I don't know if I could stand to watch that. People coming down the street dressed as shamrocks or whatever. I saw some pictures, and it was quite a crowd. Maybe one of these days it might appear in the Wrinkle City Gazette. Who knows? But D52 Creative Services, she does an excellent job, whether it's marketing, business plans, different types of print design, postcards, flyers, brochures, logo development, market research. Mary Frances is fantastic. So you want to check her out at d52creativeservices.com. Also, a big shout out to Scott and Susie Phillips at the American Wood Shop. And they finished filming their 25th season, which will start, I believe, next October. And so they've already done a whole year. They're still out in Utah skiing as much as they can, and then they're going to return more than likely in April, and that's when he starts planning for the rest of his shows. So he always does a good job with woodworking. I was never good at it, but I've been out to his shop, and I've seen the equipment that he has and some of the stuff that he's done. It's just fantastic. So check him out on PBS, the Public Broadcasting System, WBGSU, out of Bowling Green, Ohio, and it's called the American Wood Shop. Also, show us, don't tell us. You know, we have Skills and Mike and Papa Bear, and they're always on, and now they're on Fridays from midnight to 3 a.m. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep. Eastern time.
Yeah. Eastern time, yes. I wonder why they mess with time. I had that problem last week. You know, I was down in Cincinnati, and I got back in about 10:30 at night, and I had to change all my clocks. I wasn't right for the next 2 days. I don't know about you.
It usually takes me about 4 days to get myself readjusted again in one way or another, especially because here in Indiana, where we're at, we did not have daylight savings times for many years. We never changed time. And then all of a sudden, about 10 years ago, they decided, nope, we're going to start doing it. Are you kidding me? It's been this way for the past 100 years. Stop messing with it.
Yeah, I kind of yell that out around here. Let's not mess with it. If you want to open an hour earlier, you know, or stay open an hour later, hey, that's fine and dandy. Or else just make it daylight savings time all the time. Of course, we'd be up a little bit darker. It would be like, oh, dark 5:30 getting up. I can't take that. But yeah, we daylight savings time, and it took me 2, maybe 3 days at the most to get my act together. And I wish they wouldn't do that. Now, in the fall, you know, when you fall back, you get that extra hour of sleep. And that's great. But this thing about spring forward, oh boy, I can't take that. And I'll probably still be messed up for the next 2 months. Who knows? Also, hey, Papa Bear has another show that he's doing on WCET.
Yeah, it's called What's Out There. That airs on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yep.
And you know he's had Peter Kling on as a guest for several days.
Yeah, they do a good job with that show, yeah. And
Yeah.
Peter also has now a new show that started up as well, kind of a new old show. He's rekindled the Final Countdown on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Dr. Jason Rand as his co-host.
Wow. That's interesting because, I mean, Pete always has some very interesting topics that he covers.
Yep, definitely.
He's really good. Also, you know, there's somebody at Open Eyes Network I think I know.
That would be me.
Oh, you?
Indeed, yes. And I have a lot of shows that I do. I've got Brothers at Arms, Open Eyes, Money and Change, the Positude Podcast, Adventures in Autism. I got a lot. So if you guys want to go over to OpenEyesNetwork.com, you guys can check out all the shows that are involving me in one way or the other. You can also go over to YouTube at youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network and hit that subscribe button over there. Hit the little bell icon so that you guys can get notified of when we put out a new show, when we do an upload, when I go live doing a live stream of a video game, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you're doing video games now.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a few weeks. I've been wanting to do it actually with my channel for a few years now, and I decided, well, it's about time that I kick it in, and it's working out really well. You know, I do it as a way to help to kind of catch people that wouldn't normally listen to a show like ours, but get them interested in something like that, because I talk about the same kind of topics while I'm live streaming doing the video gaming as I do with the shows that I'm on.
And that's neat. That's neat. Also, a big shout out to Michael Vera at LNM Radio Network. And he's carried the show for a little bit over 5 years now. And, we started out doing 30-minute segments, and we are now at an hour. And Michael's always been fun to work with. And also, you want to check him out on Facebook, LNM Radio Network. He's got some neat T-shirts he's selling now. And so you want to check out his website. And that just about covers it, for the shout-outs. But, the next step, you know what that is? That's called a disclaimer. And the information contained in this presented material is from the posting of news agencies on the internet and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the owners of this program. We are not responsible for and expressly disclaim all liability for damages of any kind arising out of use, reference to, or reliance on any information contained in this broadcast. The information provided is not offered as financial advice, financial planning, or for investment purposes, so you want to use this information at your own risk. Now, from the desk of xe.com, it's a very good site when you're looking at currencies, and you can get up-to-date information there. But xe.com is an excellent site. It covers all the world currencies, and you can do a lot of stuff to analyze different currencies on that site. But the euro, last week it was $1.23. It dropped a penny to $1.22. The Great British Pound went up a penny. That's up to $1.39. The Australian dollar stayed the same at 77 cents, and it's done that for the last 3 weeks. The Canadian dollar was at 77 cents to the U.S. dollar. It dropped down to 76. So things are going to be a little bit more expensive for the Canadians when they come south to Florida for the spring. Also, the Swiss franc dropped a penny. It's down to $1.04. The Japanese yen stayed the same at 0.9 cents. The Chinese yuan, it's getting ready to go to 15.8 cents to the U.S. dollar. Right now, it's at 15.79 cents. And it's probably going to go up. The Kuwaiti dinar stayed the same at 332, and it's done that for the last 3 weeks. Ethereum, oh man, we talked about that last week. It was at $709, and 2 weeks prior to that, it was $934.16 for one Ethereum coin. Now it's down to $487 for one Ethereum coin. Wow, I don't know what's happening in the markets to do that. They did have a sell-off at Mt. Gox, and that caused some problems. I don't know what to tell you other than don't invest in cryptocurrency. And I think, Ira, we've talked about that, for the last, 4 or 5 months?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a mess, to say the least.
Well, it was like 14,000 plus for one Bitcoin, like 5-6 weeks ago. And then they had this sell-off and so forth. It went down to it was the theft. It went down to $10,774.72. The next week, it went up to $11,500 for one Bitcoin. Last week, it was $9,435, and this week, it's $7,525 for one Bitcoin. That's scary. I mean, here you could have made a lot of money in Bitcoin, but it's hard to sell all that stuff off. It takes probably between 3 and 4 days to convert it into regular money. And now you've got countries that are going to start taxing the Bitcoin, Ethereums, and all the other crypto coins that you have. And they'll be coming out with a tax on that, and probably going to be capital gains. So you want to watch that. it's too tricky. It's too new. There are still some bugs there. And somebody can get in and rip off your account and you don't even know it. And all of a sudden, your wallet that maybe had 1,000 Bitcoins in, if you're so lucky, suddenly went to zero. And there everything goes. And then we have gold. Now that's something you can hold in your hand. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium, even copper, pure copper. You can hold it in your hand. You possess it. Cryptocurrencies, it's just in an electronic wallet that are just numbers or decimal of numbers, and that's it. Can you touch it? No, you can hold that wallet probably, but people can access that wallet. A hacker can get in there. Can a hacker come in and take your gold? If it's physical gold, no, because you have it. If it's the type of gold certificates, and we've warned you about buying that stuff, those gold certificates are just paper. And if the markets crash and you go to get your gold from the site that sold you these gold certificates, and they'll advertise, they'll say, hey, we'll sell you the gold and we'll store it and we'll give you this piece of paper for it. Stay clear of that stuff. You want to make sure that you have that gold in your physical possession and have a secure place to store it. But you look at gold. Last week it was $1,322.23 an ounce. It went down to $1,313.87 as of today. Silver, it went down. Last week it was $16.49. It's $16.33 an ounce. Platinum, it went down a little bit. It's down to $949.49 for 1 ounce. Palladium, it went up. I can't figure that one out. Why did it go up and everything else goes down? Last week, palladium was $977.05 an ounce, and now it's up to $996.77 an ounce. And several weeks ago, it was up over $1,000 an ounce for that. And you have to understand that palladium is only found in Russia. And so they kind of control that market. But if you're going to look to invest in physical currency, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, even copper, what you want to do is pay down your debt first, put some money aside for a rainy day, like if you suddenly lose your job or your business closes. And we're going to be talking about some of the businesses that are closing a little bit later. Also, you want to put some money aside, get some long-term food. And if you say, well, gee, I don't have the money to go out to maybe Be Prepared, Emergency Essentials, or the LDS store or whatever, and get these long-term freeze-dried foods, what do I do? Well, there's Kroger's, Aldi's, Publix markets down in Florida. I mean, go to your local market, shop to get the best price, and go ahead every time you go in, spend an extra $5 on food. Or spend an extra $10 on food. And set that aside and only get the stuff that you're going to use. And if you do it that way, you can build up your supplies. Because, you look at the different stores that are out there. You go to what we call Wally World, but it's really Walmart. You go there, and they have supplies coming in every day. And I imagine that I think statistics are showing that within 3 days, the stores have to be restocked because it's a just-in-time delivery. And so that's why they have a lot of those deliveries coming into the stores. Kroger's is the same way. They have a delivery every so many days. And if the markets crash, the banks close, whatever, any type of a disaster, you've got food at home you can use. And just make sure you have something to cook it on. And you can get a camp stove or charcoal briquettes and use your outdoor grill. There are a lot of things you can do, but you want to be prepared. You also want to make sure that you get medications if you need it. You know, if you're a diabetic, you want to talk to the doctor about storing some extra meds at your house. If you need other types of medications, yeah, you want to build up on those. Also, vitamins. And also have appropriate clothing for the season that you're in. We're going into spring, and we're going to be shedding all the heavy winter clothes that we have, and we're going to go to something a little bit lighter. Make sure you have some shelter. And just go to moneyandchange.weebly.com. I mean, I really can't emphasize that enough. If you do that, you can go to the preparedness section. We've got videos there. We've got all kinds of information there. Just go there and take a look at moneyandchange.weebly.com. We just don't talk about banks and finance and things like that. We also go into preparedness. So you want to take a look at the website. Well, take a look at Cointelegraph, for example. I was looking at some stuff today, and I just about flipped out when I was looking at it. And it said, Tom Lee predicts Bitcoin to reach $91,000 by March 2020 based on performances after past dips. Do you think it's going to ever get there? I don't. $91,000, something really bad would have to happen.
Yeah, that's quite a number for that kind of a currency to be able to hit. I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think it's ever going to even come close to that kind of amount.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people predicting it, but one of the things I've wondered about people predicting that kind of thing is if the people that are predicting that kind of thing are actually working on behalf of Bitcoin, for example, to try to push it to that level.
And they call those pumpers.
Exactly.
They call those pumpers. And that happens in the currency markets too.
Quite frequently. I think more frequently than people would like to admit.
Yeah. And I got caught in that one time. And they said, oh, this one currency was really going to go invest. I was checking multiple sites. And friends of mine were saying, invest. Well, I did a little bit. That was 10 years ago. It hasn't done diddly squat. But there's always that chance that if the US dollar collapses and they either align with the Chinese yuan at 15 point, let's say 8 cents to the dollar, I would get some of that back. But when I first bought it, the currency was like 5,480 of theirs to $1 US. And I thought, oh, this is going to get hot. And I was looking at it and thought, okay, we'll get a little bit. Well, that was 10 years ago. Have I made anything on my money? Yeah, a little bit. It's up to 1,000 to $1 US. I mean, I could cash it in, but I was waiting for a 1-to-1. That's really when things happen, but it hadn't happened. Then you take a look at the Russians. According to Cointelegraph, the Russians are calling for a crypto hour to turn off all mining equipment for ecological awareness. Can you imagine that? Look at the electricity it takes to get a Bitcoin or an Ethereum coin or a Litecoin. In China, people were buying small power stations so they could run their equipment to get this coin. And all they're doing is just burning up coal, using up natural resources to produce the energy to get a coin that may take them months to get for even just a digital coin, like maybe 1/10 of a Bitcoin or 1/100th of a Bitcoin. And the computers do all the work, but you're burning up all this energy. Why do it? At least with gold, you know what you have. It's tradable. You don't go walking down the street with a big bar of gold in your pants because number one, it's going to tear a hole in the pants. Number two, I don't think you're going to be able to take more than a couple steps, and then you're going to have to rest because that gold bar it's heavy. It's around 100 pounds, I believe. So you want to look at 10th-ounce coins. Those are easily tradable. Same thing with silver dollars. And you can go to all different types of sites, silver.com, Kitco, APMEX, just have to check out who has the best price on the silver and who gives the best secure service. So, it's something to have, but you got to pay down your bills first. You have to get all that taken care of. And if you don't, then you have problems. Don't live beyond your means. I just about flipped out today. I got a bill from Bank of America. I thought, I didn't put much on there. Then I looked at it, it was only $29. I'm like, whew, that's an easy one. But I know people that are so deep in payments, they have to get that taken care of. You don't want to be in debt for that. And people say, well, it's only money and so forth. Let them try to take it from me. I've been hearing stories about debtors' prisons. You can't pay your debts, they'll throw you in the slammer. I don't think I want to stay in the Gray Bar Hotel overnight or for a week or a month or whatever. So I like to pay my bills. The house is paid for. The car, I got a few more payments on the car, but they're low payments. So I could pay it off now if I wanted to. But I'm going to write it out a little bit because I've got other things I want to use my money for. Well, let's get into some of the stories that we have. Peak gold has arrived, according to Alex DeLucia from the Gold Telegraph. He said, following a recent market crash, investors lost $5.2 trillion worldwide before the market managed to recover most of the losses. And there are hints that certain bubbles are ready to burst as the world's biggest hedge fund positions accordingly. In addition to the stock market, the global gold supply is weakening, leaving investors anticipating higher prices. And in 2017, the gold supply plummeted the most since any year since 2008. If the supply of gold is really plateauing, experts are predicting a peak gold period. Well, who's been buying up the gold? It's been the Chinese and the Russians. China, the world's largest miner of gold, produced 453 tons of the metal in 2016. In 2017, the production fell by 9%. Well, if they can't get it out of production, you know what they do? They buy it elsewhere. And that's what they've been doing with their economy, buying up gold. And the Russians are doing the same. I wonder what we've been doing in regards to our gold. Who knows? Maybe they ought to, along with auditing the Pentagon, which is now in process, they ought to audit the Fed and they ought to audit Fort Knox to find out exactly how much gold we have. I think that would be something to go in there and they open up the vault and you only find 3 bars of gold there and a bunch of wooden blocks painted like gold. I think that would really get things stirred up. Well, the U.S. dollar has dominated the global currency market for over 40 years, and China and Russia are actively increasing their gold reserves, which could lead to both economic and political uncertainties as more countries begin to dump U.S. treasuries, and China holds a bunch. And both Russia and China are planning to use gold-backed currency as payment when trading with each other. This makes gold a critical commodity for both countries, according to that report in Gold Telegraph. And then you take a look at other countries that are producing less gold, and China is not the only one. It's South African and Australian gold deposits are becoming depleted. Gee, I wonder where the rest of it is. As the mines become exhausted, gold is a commodity. It'll still exist. But once it's used up, it's physically gone. And gold mining and exploration will become more costly. For over 130 years, massive gold deposits were discovered in a number of countries, and gold has been easy to access and produce. And during the late 20th century, some mines were producing as much as 50 million ounces a year. And in the 21st century, mines producing 50 million or even 30 million ounces of gold no longer exist. And maybe that's why our prices of gold are going down. But you know, gold prices were fixed on the LIBOR market. Maybe they're still being fixed. Who knows? I get worried about that. I get worried because, according to the National Debt Clock, we were at 21 trillion, 33 billion, 267 million, and going up in national debt. And as I'm looking at it right now, it's $64,252 per citizen to pay off that debt, and per taxpayer, it's $173,511 to pay it off. I don't know about you, Ira, but I don't have that type of cash around.
Not real handy, no.
I'd hate to see what a wallet would look like with all of that. And that reminds me, a lot of people out there are talking about what happens if the banks collapse. Who knows when? They're not going to tell us. If the markets collapse and Wall Street has a big problem, the bubbles burst and everything else, and the banks close, do you have money at home? Do you have it stored in a safe place? Some people are out there are saying, hey, let's go ahead and only keep enough money in the bank to pay our bills and everything else comes out. Okay, it's good in theory, but do you have a safe place to store it? What do you do with your money? Do you keep it in the big banks? Do you keep it in smaller banks? That's the question. Do you put it in savings and loan? Do you put it in a credit union? Credit unions are usually pretty safe places to put your money. But you never know, because you could put it in Wells Fargo and you're going to have some problems. I've got a story about that coming up. And you know, Deutsche Bank was in problems in Europe, and according to Reuters now, they're going to pay their staff 2 billion euros, and I'm going to say about $3.25 billion in bonuses for 2017. That's what they said they're going to do. They've been closing a bunch of places, and now they're going to pay their staff benefits. And I don't think the big bosses are getting the benefits. I think it's being spread all over. And the big thing is John Cryan, who's the chief executive of the bank, you know, they're still struggling to return to the black. And, you know, the generous pay rewards irked a lot of people in Germany as perceptions grow that wealth is increasingly being concentrated in the hands of the super rich. And that was according to Reuters. Now, what happens if banks fail? What happens there? There's a little known thing called a bail-in. And a bail-in happens when the federal government is not going to bail out the big banks, and instead they tell the big banks, you get it from your members. And so they would come to me and say, hey, we need 30% of your money to cover the bail-in, and we're taking it out. So remember that $1,000 that you had in the bank? It's now down to $700. But you can't do that. Oh, yeah, we can. It says right here in Dodd-Frank, buried in thousands of pages. That's when it gets scary. And you always have to go back and look at Greece and see what they did there. And they limit the amount of money you can take out of your ATMs. Speaking of ATMs, Ira, have you ever been to an ATM and you go to use your card and there's no money?
I have a couple of times, yeah.
It gets frustrating, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I had that happen the other day. I'm going to Fee Third. That's what I call the bank. And because they charge fees for everything. And I take out my card, put it in the ATM. It says, sorry. I'm like, hey, I've got money in the account, man. I got to go to Kroger's and get some stuff. Sorry. It spits it back out. So then I have to go around town looking for a ATM to take out money. They're all down. I don't know what caused it to do that. But here I am. I'm like, okay, I'll go to Kroger's tomorrow. Then later on that night, I figured, well, I'll just check it. So I go down to the local branch. Sure enough, they had money in there. So, it gets frustrating. It really does. And so that's why you want to keep a little cash at home just in case you need to go to the grocery store or get medications or gasoline for your car or whatever. And it's usually advisable to keep probably about a month's worth of money set aside to pay your bills. So you might want to think about that. Well, we talked a little bit about Wells Fargo just a little bit ago. And Wells Fargo is facing sanctions for auto insurance payouts, according to sources. And that was an article by Patrick Rucker at Reuters. And it said that U.S. regulators are preparing to sanction Wells Fargo for receiving commissions on auto insurance policies it helped force on more than 500,000 drivers, people with direct knowledge of the probes told Reuters. And in July, Wells Fargo blamed a third-party vendor for wrongly layering insurance policies on its auto borrowers. And Wells Fargo didn't explain that it received payouts when those policies were written. And the fact that Wells Fargo stood out to profit from the insurance program will form the backbone of fresh sanctions against the bank. And those penalties would be the latest in a long-running scandal over how the nation's third largest lender treated its customers. And the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, or OCC, Wells Fargo's primary regulator, is asking the bank which executives knew about the payments and whether they should have been stopped sooner. Of course, Wells Fargo didn't comment on it, according to the report. And Wells Fargo's auto insurance woes stem from a policy drivers must carry when they borrow money to buy a new car. And it pays out to the bank when the car is stolen or destroyed. What a rigged deal. If you have driver's insurance, home and auto and all that, that'll cover it. You don't have to buy insurance from the bank on the money. Would you want to really do business, Ira, with Wells Fargo?
Oh, heck no. No way.
As you're shaking your head and, stomping your feet and steam's coming out your ears?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. If I was in a bank that had that type of problems, I'd be looking to take my money out. And that's just me. Our listeners have to make up their own minds as to what they want to do. And if Wells Fargo is the only bank around, I don't know what to tell you. If you go to moneyandchange.weebly.com, you can go into the bank section. You can go to bankrate.com and find out how the banks in your area are rating. And if you're looking at Wells Fargo and you say, well, they're a little shaky, I want to find something else, maybe you can find a farm loan bank, or maybe you can find a credit union and move your funds from there. And, if the bank says, well, why are you taking your money out of our bank? Well, with all the scandals you've had in the last couple of years, I don't want to keep my money there. I don't want to lose it. I don't want to be shafted when I go to borrow money for a car. Maybe they'll think twice over that. And also, there was a fund company that LJM is sued by Wells Fargo over missed payments. That's what happens when you miss payments. The bank will come after you. The credit union will come after you. But in a complaint filed in Manhattan Federal Court, Wells Fargo and Company said that it sued LJM Partners Limited for its commodity pool after being required in its role as clearing broker to cover the company's margin and losses with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. LJM failed to make contractually required payments to cover losses. An LJM run by Anthony Kane told clients last week it would return what is left of their money. And it could be the first investment manager to close after complex trades failed spectacularly in the February 5th reversal of fortune in the U.S. stocks that some investors called Volmageddon. Watch where you have your money. Watch what you do with your money. Also, speaking of what do you do with your money, you know, there was an article by Charles Benavidez, Benavidez, in safehaven.com. And he said from Switzerland to Singapore, Singapore, sorry about that, Singapore, the world's top tax havens, and he listed them out. And he said the UK-based Tax Justice Network's new Financial Secrecy Index estimates that the ultra-wealthy are hiding up to $32 trillion in tax havens around the world. And while Switzerland gets the top spot on the new list, the U.S. isn't a not-so-distant second. I would never have guessed that. Not even major global scandals such as the Panama and Paradise Papers have been able to slow the rise of the bigger and better tax havens. And according to FSI, number one is Switzerland. And they scored at 76%. And Switzerland's a global leader in asset management, and it basically corners about 28% of the market share, and it holds an estimated $6.5 trillion. And more than half of that comes from abroad. And the attraction there is low tax base coupled with top-notch banking system. Then you have the number two haven, according to FSI, and that's the U.S. As far as secrecy, it rates a 60. And it's on a tear for being the top tax haven spot. And between 2015 and 2018, U.S. market share of global offshore financial services rose 14%, from 19.6% to 22.3%. Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming are the most aggressive tax havens. And they kind of nickname them as captured states. Take a look at Cayman Islands. They're number 3. Third place to go in the overseas territory of the UK, or the United Kingdom, holds about $1.4 trillion in assets managed through 200 banks. Then there's number 4, Hong Kong. While one of the world's newer tax havens, it's already hit 4th place and is managing some $2.1 trillion. Then you go to Singapore. And this is the favorite country for servicing Southeast Asia, according to the report. It has a secrecy ranking of around 67. Luxembourg. I mean, this is a tiny, tiny country. I think the capital there is Vaduz. And I mean, you could drive through it in very short notice. And I think I had an employee that worked for me one time. She married a guy from Luxembourg, and they live over there running a travel business. But it's a tiny European state, and it has a massive tax haven punch. And despite its size, it's said to control about 12% of the global market. And then you have number 7, Germany, number 8, Taiwan, the United Arab Emirate of Dubai, and then the Guernsey Island. I have never been there. I've seen pictures. If I remember right, you cannot operate a car or a truck on the island. You could use a farm tractor, but it's basically a small island for farming and fishing. But it's in the English Channel, and it's about 0.5% of the global trade is there. Might be a neat place to visit. I don't know. One of these days, if I ever get the funds together and an investment comes through, I might go to Guernsey. Might be a neat place to visit. It might be 50 years behind times. At least some of the pictures I saw were. Well, another report came out on Zero Hedge about the rollback of Dodd-Frank provisions, and it clears the Senate on a 10-year anniversary of Bear Stearns' collapse. Well, the worst thing that we could have ever done is the Dodd-Frank provisions, because all we had to do was just reinstate the Glass-Steagall Act, and that would put a lot of controls on the banks. But since they did away with Glass-Steagall, now they have the Dodd-Frank, which is thousands of pages, and it's still being added to. Oh, let's make up a new rule. How about tomorrow? Let's get together for coffee, and we'll come up with a new rule, and we'll make it, a couple thousand more pages. It's kind of crazy. You have to limit what banks can do, especially the big ones. And this bipartisan bill started out, it was well-intentioned to satisfy some perhaps legitimate community bank grievances, but instead it mushroomed, and sparking fears that Washington is paving the way for a next financial meltdown, according to David Dayen, D-A-Y-E-N, of The Intercept. And the key provisions are, it relaxes a host of reporting requirements for small and medium banks, and to a smaller extent, large banks. That's a bad move there, in my opinion. It eliminates a reporting requirement introduced by Dodd-Frank designed to avoid discriminatory lending. It relaxes stress testing requirements intended to show how banks would survive another financial crisis. You don't want to relax that, you want to increase it. Then it raises the threshold for the banks, which are not subject to enhanced liquidity requirements, stress tests, and enhanced risk management. It allows mega banks, for example, like Citibank, to count municipal bonds as highly liquid assets. And it calls for a report on the risks and benefits of algorithmic trading within 18 months. I think it's going to favor the big banks or the bigger banks. It's not a good move, in my opinion. We need to get back to Glass-Steagall. And then we need to tell the politicians, you're not going to let the banks write the new regulations for you. It's scary. And Ira, we had talked a couple weeks ago about stores closing. And a report that came out, and you found it, and it was done by Dathy Luther at the Organic Prepper, was a report on the 2018 death list.
Indeed, yeah, and there's quite a few things that are on that list that people will definitely recognize.
Well, how about Abercrombie and Fitch? I've never been to one.
I've got a couple of their outfits, but I've not been there in quite a long time. They're very expensive,
Yeah.
Very expensive place to shop, and that may be one of the reasons why it's failing.
Well, according to the report, 60 more stores are charted to close. And then Aerosols, only 4 of their 88 stores are definitely remaining open. American Apparel, they've filed for bankruptcy. Toys R Us, hey, they filed for bankruptcy. They're going to be closing a bunch of stores.
Which, doesn't surprise me because, again, you walk in there and it is so expensive compared to being able to get anything online. It's sometimes when we would go there to look for something for the kids, the prices that were listed there were 3 times or more expensive than you could get off of, just shopping online or going to a different store. It was ridiculous how much they were charging for things. So it doesn't really surprise me that they're closing down. People just can't afford to go there anymore,
But do you have any Bon-Ton stores?
No, we don't have any of those here.
We do, and it used to be Elder Beerman Corporation out of Dayton, Ohio. And Elder Beerman had some really good clothes. It was reasonably priced. And then They went out of business. Bon-Ton bought them up, and things went cheaper. Well, they filed for Chapter 11, and they'll be closing 48 stores. CVS, they've closed 70 stores, but thousands still remain viable. I noticed I was in Dayton one time driving around, and I noticed some stores that were once CVS are now Dollar Tree stores. And they were in fairly decent areas. You know, Foot Locker, they're closing 110 underperforming stores. H.H. Gregg, hey, they're gone. We had one here in town. They're gone. J. Crew, they'll be closing 50 stores. J.C. Penney, they've closed 138 stores and plan to turn all the remaining ones into toy stores. Well, we've got a J.C. Penney here and a Bon-Ton. Looks like Wally World's going to be the only one in town. How about the Limited? All 250 locations are closing. Macy's, 7 more stores are going to close, and more than 5,000 employees are going to be laid off.
Again, very expensive place to shop.
How about Payless for shoes? They'll be closing 800 stores.
We had a couple of them here, and they closed down here quite a long time ago.
Well, yeah, and you've got Sears and Kmart. You know, they've closed over 300 locations. Rue 21, they said they're going to close 400 stores this year. Are we really in a Great Depression? We might be going into a recession. And President Trump can only turn the economy around so much because it's basically been down the tubes for about the last 8 years or more. It's scary. You know, we're $21 trillion plus in debt. And some people say, well, you just pay yourself off. We just owe that money to ourselves. And I argued that when I was in high school with a teacher that I had. And he said, no, we just owe it to ourselves. We just print more money. I said, that's stupid. It's totally stupid. We owe it to ourselves, but look how much bonds and everything that China holds. If China comes back and they say, well, we want our money and we want it now, like a Wentworth commercial, what are you going to do? How can you pay them back? Oh, you want California? Okay, you can have the granola state. I don't think the people in California would like that. But, you know, you take a look at different things, and Mike Shedlock from Mishtalk talked about housing liquidity, and there's crisis there with debt deflation. You take a look at the bubbles, and we've talked about them time and time again about the housing bubble, automotive loan bubble, student loan bubbles. If these things start to pop, and that's using the term mildly, we're going to be in deep trouble. And you say, well, we can put more people on welfare. And then some people say, well, gee, America's welfare we're stingy. We don't give enough. Well, according to Ryan McMacken from the Mises Institute, you know, the Trump's new budget proposal envisions steep cuts to America's social safety net. And they're saying, oh, it'll gut social programs. But, you know, really, when you look at it, Trump's proposal doesn't matter, and Congress will set to work piling on more deficit spending for both social programs and for the Pentagon. But the debate of gutting social programs will no doubt be used to perpetuate, yet again, the myth that the U.S. is ruled by libertarian social Darwinists. Oh, boy, that's a big phrase. Who ensure that no more than a few pennies are spent via social programs for the poor. Well, according to the report, the United States spending on social programs is on a par with Australia and Switzerland and can hardly be described as laissez-faire. Matter of fact, it's way down the list. The most is France. public spending, about 31.5%. The US is about 19.3%. In Finland, it's 30.8%. Belgium is 29%. Italy, 28.9%. Sweden is 27.1%. Norway's about 25.1%. We're not all that stingy because when you get down to Mexico, it's 7.5%. Korea is 10.4%. Iceland is 15.2%. Ireland is 16.1%. And you say we're stingy? No, we're not. It's just, you can't provide welfare for the world out of one country. And you take a look at the undocumented, the illegals in the Southwest or elsewhere around the country. They're getting benefits. Are they citizens? Do they pay into the system? Some don't. If you were illegal in Germany or Austria or Hungary, even Switzerland, you would not be getting any benefits at all. Matter of fact, they'd be sending you home. And Germany right now, there's a lot of people over there that are just regretting taking in immigrants because it's totally messed up the judicial system, and there's a lot of crime over there. It's not a good place to go anymore. We do provide welfare. Some people want to have more welfare. Well, where's it going to come from? That's the question. We're already overspent. We'll take it out of the Pentagon. Yeah, you could do that. You could probably take 10 or 15% out of the Pentagon's budget, and they wouldn't miss it. It would just force them to economize and make good use of all their little projects. And then you say, well, where am I going to find work? Well, you can find some jobs here in the States. They may not pay what you want, but guess what? You can find employment. In some cases, you may have to work 2 jobs. And did you hear about the Flippy, the burger flipping robot?
Flippy, the burger flipping robot. Yeah, we ran across a video about Flippy here a couple of weeks ago. It seemed rather interesting, the AI with it and stuff.
Yeah, well, he worked one day, or it worked one day, and it had a minor setback. It was in Pasadena, California. And it took its brand new burger flipping robot, which is known as Flippy, offline after the first day due to slow performance. And it wasn't Flippy's fault, according to the report. Cali Burger said that while Flippy held up its end of the deal, there weren't enough to prepare the patties fast enough to, prior to cooking, or finish the burgers with all the fixings. I wonder if Flippy flipped off management. Oh man, that's bad. Okay, I've just been flipped off by a robot.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, anyhow, we do have a little humor around here. Hey, if you go to moneyandchange.weebly.com, you know that we have the prepping calendar back in the prepping section, prepping you, and we have the February list. The March list hasn't come out yet. Well, in the remaining minute and a half here, we always do the Wrinkle City Gazette, and it's always updated once a month. And it goes out by email to 22 states and 2 foreign countries. And, we have employees here that work for this Wrinkle City. And, a city employee sat in his office and out of boredom decides to see what is in his old filing cabinet. So he pokes through the contents and comes across an old brass lamp. And this will look nice on my mantelpiece, he says. And he takes it home with him and he polishes up the lamp, and all of a sudden a genie appears and grants him 3 wishes. And he said, okay, I wish for an ice cold Diet Coke right now. Boom, he gets his Diet Coke and he drinks it. Now that he can drink and think more clearly, he states his second wish. And he says, I wish to be on an island where beautiful young women reside, And suddenly he's on an island with gorgeous females eyeing him lustfully. And then he tells the genie his third and last wish. He said, I wish I'd never have to work again. And poof, he's back in his government office working for Wrinkle City. And that's all I've got today for Money and Change. And like I said, check out our website, moneyandchange.weebly.com. A lot of information there, and it's updated several times a week. Also, you want to make sure that you donate to L&M Radio Network to keep us on the air, and listen to us on WCET 101.7 Columbia Talk. With that, that's all I've got, Ira.
Thank you, Stu, for all that you do. Everybody out there, have a great week. We will talk to you again soon. Be safe, everyone.